What's up, folks? JC Owens, as always. This is Rock My World, episode 11. Beware the Pied Piper. Now, if you took any notice of the thumbnail, you'll see that Mr. Brand's name is featured quite prominently. That is not by mistake. He has went out and done a lot of these fairy tale reworkings, I guess you could say, as of late, and he uses some very ancient imagery. And if any of you caught my community posts from earlier this morning, will have seen the similarities between his titular character in this Pied Piper of Hamelin book and the Harlequin, right? Which is a very, very ancient symbol, much as the Holy Fool is. It's kind of opposite, right? A part I play oftentimes, I'd like to think, you know, but the thing is, this plays to a greater concept, which is this Pied Piper thing, of which Russell Brand is one, I would say. If you've noticed, Russell got himself into a little trouble. He was a really huge, liberal Hollywood guy, and then he gets himself in trouble, and all of a sudden he jumps to the other side, right? Well, this goes back to that same good cop, bad cop stuff I talk about all the time, right? It also, brings in concepts like poisoning the well, which we've talked about before, as I've done community posts on, and a whole lot of other psychological warfare tactics that Hollywood uses, and you'll definitely see used by some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Not necessarily saying that they're all masters of this stuff, like they don't all study it like I do. A lot of them do. I mean, you can even see there at Elvis's Graceland, or at any of these, celebrity libraries that have been preserved. You'll see books on this kind of stuff. Like, it's all over Hollywood. But even if they aren't into it, their managers usually are, or somebody close to them that's advising them. You'll see the imagery and the symbols everywhere, right? And the Harlequin is no different. There's music videos and songs like a Requiem from for the Harlequin. Just being one I can think of right off the top of my head. Um, but I say this because there are so many of these influencers these days who are playing this part, right? They'll come on, they'll say something true, and then they will immediately go into craziness and lead you off into the bushes, the proverbial bushes, we'll say. Um, you know, uh, Russell Brand is one. Candace Owens is another that comes to mind. I've mentioned her before. Um, I'd like to see Alex Jones, maybe. Like, there's a lot of these folks that would act as if they're against the globalist plot for one world government and the digital ID and all these kind of things, but then will turn around and support things that directly or indirectly help the elite achieve their goals. Right? Look at Mr. Donald Trump, for example. He says all these things, makes all these promises, but what does he actually do? Well, he pushes the digital ID. He's pushing digital money. He's pushing these wars in Venezuela. Trying to get Greenland. He's trying to do all the things that would bring about the North American Union, which, to those that don't know, the North American Union is a plot, thought up by the Club of Rome, the Royal Society, the CIA, like all of these global players came together and came up with this a long time ago, dividing the world up into 10 sectors, that, EU style sectors that would be, then, capable of being plugged into the greater one world government system, right? That's why all of our economies are going down the tubes right now, because the fact of the matter is they're about to replace it with something else. It's even this like pushback on the UN. Like they did this before too. It was well before our time, but the UN used to be called the League of Nations, right? And when they dissolved the League of Nations, they did the same thing, right? They act like, oh, the League of Nations is bad; it should be done away with. And then they brought in the UN, which is just the next stage of the process, right? They bring in the UN, they bring in the new financial system, and so on and so forth. Well, they're doing the same thing here with the Great Reset. They're collapsing the old economy. They're collapsing the old, the banking system that supports it. They're redoing how everything is done, right? And this is just the first step, or just the next step towards like the next part of the process, right? Like your cell phones and all these smart devices. They're already migrating to like now they're on your wrist and in your ear or over your eye or whatever it may be. It's on the body right now, but soon it will be in the body. I mean, there's already people who are putting this technology to work, like inside the human body. They're going to use things like, oh, well, we need to help the disabled veterans that we sent to war and they got their legs blown off. We need to help them. So we need to do this stuff, right? Don't you want the blind to see? Like, are you the meanie who doesn't want the blind to be able to see or the crippled to be able to walk? And it's like, well, that would be great if it didn't, also mean giving a giant database of information on you to the government, giving them your location data and everywhere, the information on everywhere you've ever went, everybody you've ever talked to. Once you give these companies and the government this power, like, they will misuse it. They will use it to harm you and yours, and mine, like, for that matter. We're all in danger. All of us. Doesn't matter what color you are, what language you speak. These people are coming for us all. Every last one of us. And it doesn't, like, ever really stop either. Like, once these guys die off, there'll just be another set that take their place. That's why all this, like, crazy extremism where dudes go off and try to, like, do something crazy, like a Luigi, what's his last name? I can't think of his last name right now. But, the guy who whacked the pharmacy CEO. It's like, dude, they're just going to replace him with a new one tomorrow. Like, it doesn't matter. That's why they'll throw their own away like they did with P. Diddy. They'll just toss them to the side. Why? Because they're replaceable. Evil henchmen are infinitely replaceable. Remember your cartoons when you were a kid? So, like, how many evil henchmen did you just see, like, get mowed through? Right? Like, it's because there's always another one. There's always another Bond villain. The tree of evil sprouts eternal. As long as human beings exist, as long as the physical world exists, there will be people that choose evil. It's just the way it is. And we will have to continue to get up and fight it every day. Just like our children will have to get up and fight it every day. It's something that never stops. And if we don't stop all bickering over, like, a bunch of, these little divisional things that, don't really matter right now in, like, context of what we're up against, right? These little squabbles aren't going to matter at all if, we're all wiped out, or enslaved by these people. It won't matter at all. And, these influencers that are telling you what you want to hear, they'll lead you into a trap. Almost every time. Almost every time. There's a song, "Beware the dog that brings the bone," right? You never, ever, ever want to just take that on face value when somebody brings you something that you want, especially if they're getting you or coming to you in a situation where you're desperate, when you're against like impossible odds and they just happen to bring you a convenient out. You should always, always be wary of that one, like, because that's not really how things go most of the time, right? Yeah, maybe it might happen occasionally. It could be, yeah, sure, but most of the time not. So just statistically speaking, you're better off to be very, very careful at who you follow. I tell people all the time, be careful of even just believing what I say. Look into everything I say. Look into it. Because if you don't, then you stand the risk of, or the chances of being deceived. And I don't want that. I want you guys to be, to be smarter, guys and gals. I want y'all to be smarter than that. I want y'all to be prepared for what you're going to come up against. I don't want you to have to go through like I and so many other like folks went through trying to make it in this business, or just in any business for that matter. Right? This stuff will help you no matter where you go. Right? No matter what business you're trying to get into, understanding these things like will help protect you, because these people are involved in every industry. It doesn't matter which one you go to, whether it's politics or religion or the media or social media or whatever, you name it, right? They're all infested with these people. That program called signature reduction probably has about 100,000 agents by now. It was 60,000 when the story first broke, but that's been years ago. And those government agents that are deployed all throughout our society, they are there to watch people like you and me, right? People that go against the agenda, people that are dangerous, So heads on swivel, folks. Heads on swivel. Don't just take these people at face value because they tell you something that's true. Like, make sure that everything after that is true as well. Like, really look into things. You cannot just, go along. That people are people, and, people have people motivations. And I don't know how, better to put it than that. Either way, though, I guess we'll stop it there. Just remember what I said, and, be on the lookout. Have a great day, folks. Much love.